No, absolutely not. He is not stepping foot in my house. The words come out flat and cold and final, cutting through the warm Saturday afternoon like a blade through silk, destroying in 3 seconds what took 2 years to build the courage to attempt. 23-year-old Sarah stands frozen in her parents' doorway, one hand still on the door handle, the other reaching back toward her boyfriend, who's standing on the front porch holding a bouquet of flowers and wearing his nicest civilian clothes, pressed khakis and a button-down shirt and leather shoes instead of his usual casual style, dressed specifically to make a good first impression on parents he's been hoping to meet for months. Her father has materialized behind her in the entryway like an angry ghost, his 58-year-old face hardening from curious welcome to stone-cold rejection in the span of 2 seconds, the exact moment his eyes registered who was standing on his porch next to his daughter. 25-year-old James freezes mid-step, his foot hovering over the threshold he was about to cross, his smile faltering as he processes what he just heard, his mind trying to catch up to the sudden shift from "come meet my parents" excitement to "you're not welcome here" hostility. He's a tall man, athletic build, clean-cut appearance, polite demeanor, everything about him carefully calculated to present as non-threatening and respectable, because he's learned over 25 years of living as a black man in America that first impressions matter twice as much for him as they do for his white counterparts. "Dad? What are you talking about?" Sarah's voice cracks with confusion and rising panic. "This is James. I told you he was coming. We've been planning this for weeks. You said you wanted to meet him. You said—" "I know what I said. I've changed my mind. He's not welcome in this house." Her father, Robert, steps forward slightly, positioning himself more fully in the doorway, his body language making clear that he's physically blocking entry, that this is not a negotiable situation, that the decision has been made and the discussion is over. James takes a step back from the porch, his hands tightening slightly on the bouquet of flowers he brought. Yellow roses, Sarah's favorite, something he picked out carefully this morning before driving 2 hours from the base to her hometown, because he wanted everything to be perfect for this meeting that Sarah has been both excited and nervous about for months. His face remains carefully neutral despite the humiliation burning in his chest, despite the familiar sting of racism that never quite loses its power to hurt no matter how many times you experience it. "Sir, I think there might be some misunderstanding. My name is James. I've been dating your daughter for 2 years. She's told me so much about you and your family. I brought these flowers for your wife, and I was hoping we could all sit down and talk for a bit. I know this is probably a surprise, meeting me for the first time, but I promise I have nothing but respect for your daughter and your family." Robert's expression doesn't soften even slightly. If anything, it hardens further, his jaw setting in that stubborn way that Sarah recognizes immediately as her father's "I've made up my mind and nothing will change it" face. "I don't care what your name is or how long you've been seeing my daughter behind my back. I don't need to sit down with you. I don't need to get to know you. I can see everything I need to see from right here. And what I see is someone who's not welcome in my home. So I'm going to ask you politely one time to leave my property." Sarah's face flushes red, a combination of embarrassment and anger and heartbreak all colliding at once. "Dad, this is insane. You haven't even talked to him. You don't know anything about him. He drove 2 hours to get here. The least I can do is protect my family and my home. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Sarah, get inside, now." "I'm not a child. I'm 23 years old. You can't just order me around and refuse to meet people I care about." "As long as you're living under my roof and I'm paying your student loans, I absolutely can set boundaries about who enters this house. And he's not entering. End of discussion." The mother, Linda, appears behind Robert now, her face showing discomfort and confusion and something that might be shame. "Robert, maybe we should at least let them come in and talk for a minute. Sarah's been so excited about us meeting." "No, I've made my decision. He's leaving." James has dealt with racist parents before. This isn't his first experience with a girlfriend's family rejecting him based purely on his skin color. He's developed strategies over the years for handling these situations. Stay calm, stay polite, don't give them ammunition to claim you're aggressive or threatening. Take the high road even when every fiber of your being wants to respond to the disrespect with anger. But knowing how to handle it doesn't make it hurt less. Doesn't make it less humiliating to stand on someone's porch being told you're not good enough to enter their house because of something you can't control. Sir, I understand this is your home, and you have every right to decide who enters it, but I'm asking you to reconsider. Your daughter and I have built a relationship over 2 years. We're serious about each other. I'm not here to disrespect you or your family. I'm here because I care about Sarah, and I want to do this right. I want your blessing. I want to be part of her life in a way that includes her family. Please, just give me a chance. I don't need to give you a chance. I don't need to hear your story or learn about your intentions. What I need is for you to leave my property before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. The threat lands like a punch. Calling the police. The universal weapon that white people use against black people when they want to create danger from nothing. James knows exactly how that call would go. There's a black man on my property refusing to leave. Cops show up already primed to see him as a threat. Situation escalates. Could end with him arrested or worse, all because he tried to meet his girlfriend's parents. Sarah is crying now, tears of frustration and humiliation streaming down her face. Dad, how can you do this? How can you be this person? You raised me to treat people with respect, to judge people by their character, and you won't even give James 5 minutes to show you who he is. I raised you to make smart decisions, to protect yourself, to understand that some choices have consequences, and this? Robert gestures at James like he's indicating a piece of trash on his lawn. This is a bad decision. This is you throwing away your future, and I won't stand here and pretend to support it. Throwing away my future? James is throwing away my future? He's intelligent and kind, and treats me better than any other man I've ever dated. He has goals and ambition, and he's not welcome in this house. How many times do I need to say it? James sets the flowers down carefully on the porch railing, takes another step back. His voice remains steady despite everything. Sarah, it's okay. Your father has made his position clear. I'm not going to force my presence where it's not wanted. We can talk about this later. No, it's not okay. Dad, you need to hear me right now because I am dead serious about this. If you make James leave, if you refuse to even meet him properly, then I'm leaving too. I'm not going to stay in this house and pretend this is acceptable behavior. You will have lost your daughter along with whatever moral high ground you think you're standing on. Robert's expression flickers for just a moment, uncertainty crossing his face as he realizes his daughter is serious, that this ultimatum is real. But his racism and stubbornness are stronger than his concern about losing her. If you choose to leave with him, that's your decision. But it proves my point about the kind of influence he has over you. A good man wouldn't want to come between you and your family. A good father wouldn't force that choice. A good father would care more about his daughter's happiness than his own prejudice. Watch your mouth. I'm still your father. Then act like it. Act like someone who loves me more than he hates people who don't look like him. The words hang in the air, the accusations stated plainly now. The underlying racism that everyone on this porch knows is the real reason for this confrontation finally spoken aloud, instead of dancing around it with euphemisms about bad decisions and protecting family. Robert's face flushes. This isn't about race. This is about making smart choices, about understanding cultural differences, about protecting you from complications and difficulties that come from these kinds of relationships. It's absolutely about race. You took one look at James and decided he wasn't good enough, didn't ask about his job or his education or his character, just saw his skin and made your judgment. That's racism, Dad. That's exactly what racism is. James has been standing quietly during this exchange, letting Sarah advocate for their relationship because he knows that any defense he offers will be dismissed or twisted. But he's reached a decision. He's not going to let this man's racism go unchallenged without at least trying one more time to break through the prejudice. "Mr. Patterson, before I go, I want to show you something." James walks back to his car, parked at the curb, opens the trunk, and pulls out a garment bag that he brought specifically for after this meeting. For the dinner they were supposed to have tonight at a nice restaurant where he was planning to ask Sarah's parents for their blessing because he's carrying an engagement ring in his car that he's been saving for 3 months to afford. He unzips the garment bag and pulls out his army dress uniform, the formal blue jacket with gold buttons and shoulder boards showing his rank, the pants with the perfect crease, the rows of ribbons on the chest representing deployments and commendations and sacrifices, the combat patch on the right shoulder showing he served in a war zone, all the symbols of military service that Robert claims to honor above almost everything else. Because James knows from Sarah's stories that her father is the most patriotic man she knows, has American flags displayed all over the house and yard, wears shirts with flag designs and eagle graphics, has bumper stickers on his truck about supporting troops and respecting veterans, posts constantly on social media about honoring service members and thanking them for their sacrifice. Built his entire identity around military patriotism despite never having served himself. James walks back to the porch holding the uniform jacket, letting the insignia and ribbons be clearly visible in the afternoon sunlight. Robert's eyes land on the uniform, and his expression changes instantly. Confusion first, his brain processing what he's seeing and trying to reconcile it with his assumptions. Then recognition as he identifies the army dress blues. Then something that might be the beginning of horror as implications start clicking into place. "You're military?" "Yes, sir. United States Army. First Lieutenant. I've been active duty for 7 years. Just completed my second combat deployment. Served 15 months in Afghanistan and 12 months in Iraq. I'm stationed at Fort Benning currently, finishing my commitment before I transition to civilian life next year." James's voice remains respectful but firm, stating facts without embellishment, letting the uniform and the service records speak for themselves. Robert stares at the uniform like it's a puzzle he can't solve. His mouth opens and closes several times without sound. His carefully constructed rejection is colliding with his performative patriotism, and the cognitive dissonance is visible on his face. Sarah sees the impact and presses forward. "Dad, you always talk about supporting our troops, about respecting service members, about how military service is the highest form of patriotism. James has done everything you claim to value. He's served his country. He's put his life on the line. He's earned medals for his service. And you told him to get off your property without even asking who he was." Linda moves forward, reaching past her husband to get a better look at the uniform. Her expression is complicated, shame and surprise and something that might be recognition of her husband's hypocrisy all mixing together. "Robert, he's right there. He's exactly the kind of young man you always say deserves our respect and gratitude." I didn't know he was military. How was I supposed to know?" James's voice hardens just slightly, the professional military bearing giving way to justified anger. "You weren't supposed to know, sir. You were supposed to treat me with basic human dignity regardless of what I do for a living. But since we're here, let me be clear about what you just did. You saw a black man on your porch and decided within 2 seconds that I wasn't worthy of entering your home. Didn't ask about my education. I have a bachelor's degree in engineering. Didn't ask about my career. I'm a commissioned officer with a spotless service record. Didn't ask about my intentions toward your daughter. I'm planning to ask her to marry me. Didn't ask anything. Just saw my skin color and made your judgment. That's not fair. I was just being protective of my daughter." "No, sir. You were being racist." And now you're trying to justify it by claiming it was about protection instead of prejudice. But we both know the truth. If I had been white, you would have invited me in, would have shaken my hand, would have asked about my life and my plans, would have given me a chance to prove myself. But because I'm black, I don't even get through your front door. Robert's face goes through several colors. The uniform in James's hands is creating a crisis for him, forcing him to choose between his racism and his performative military worship, making him confront the fact that he just disrespected exactly the kind of service member he claims to honor. Look, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have. I didn't realize you were Army. If you had known, then what? You would have treated me differently? You would have let me in? So my value as a human being is contingent on my military service? I only deserve respect because I wore a uniform? What about all the black people who aren't in the military? Do they deserve to be treated the way you just treated me? The question hangs in the air unanswered, because Robert has no good answer. Any response reveals the racism that's been there all along. Sarah is watching her father with an expression that's heartbreaking. The look of a daughter seeing her parents' worst qualities fully exposed and having to reconcile the father she thought she knew with the bigot standing in the doorway, refusing to admit what he is. James carefully folds the uniform jacket over his arm. Mr. Patterson, I'm going to leave now because it's clear I'm not welcome here. But I want you to understand something. I serve this country. I've fought for this country. I've lost friends in combat defending the freedoms that you enjoy. And I did all of that knowing that people like you exist. Knowing that there are Americans who will wave flags and put "Support Our Troops" stickers on their vehicles and then turn around and treat service members like me as less than human because of our skin color. I do it anyway because I believe in something bigger than individual prejudice. But that doesn't mean your racism doesn't hurt. That doesn't mean it's acceptable. And that doesn't mean I'm going to pretend this interaction didn't reveal exactly who you are. He turns to Sarah. I'll wait in the car. Take whatever time you need. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. James walks back to his car, the uniform jacket still draped over his arm, his posture military straight despite the emotional toll of the past 10 minutes. Gets in his vehicle and sits there, visible through the windshield, waiting. On the porch, Sarah turns to her father with tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to process this. I don't know how to reconcile the father I grew up with, the man who taught me about integrity and character and treating people fairly, with the person who just did what you did. Robert is still staring at the space where James was standing, his face showing the internal conflict of someone whose worldview just got shattered. Sarah, I didn't mean for it to go like this. I just saw him and I reacted. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what, Dad? From a man who serves his country? From someone who treats me with respect and kindness? From a person who drove 2 hours to meet you because he wants to do things properly? What exactly were you protecting me from except your own racist assumptions? It's not that simple. There are cultural differences, complications, things you're too young to understand. I'm not too young to understand racism. I'm not too naive to see exactly what just happened. You profiled him. You judged him. You refused him entry to your home based solely on his race. And now that you know he's military, now that he's proven himself according to your arbitrary standards, you want to backtrack and pretend it was all a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It was racism. Pure and simple. Linda speaks up, her voice quiet but firm. Robert, she's right. What you did was wrong. That young man showed nothing but respect and you treated him terribly. And if he really is military, if he really has served like he says, then you owe him an apology at the very least. I know. I need a minute to think. There's nothing to think about. You either apologize and mean it, or you don't. But you need to understand that your relationship with your daughter is on the line here, because I'm not staying for dinner. I'm not pretending this is okay. I'm leaving with James. And whether I come back depends entirely on whether you can acknowledge what you did and commit to doing better." Sarah doesn't wait for a response. Walks down the porch steps toward James's car. Gets in the passenger seat. Through the windshield, Robert can see them talking, can see his daughter gesturing back toward the house, can see the young man nodding and speaking and clearly comforting her. And Robert stands in his doorway, the one covered with American flag decorations and "Support Our Troops" signs, watching his daughter drive away with a decorated combat veteran he refused to acknowledge as fully human, and finally beginning to understand the cost of his prejudice. The car pulls away from the curb, disappears down the street, and Robert is left standing there with his wife looking at him with disappointment, and his own conscience finally catching up to his actions. "I need to fix this," he says quietly. "Yes, you do. But fixing this doesn't mean making excuses or minimizing what you did. It means acknowledging the racism, confronting it, changing it. Are you prepared to do that?" "I don't know. I don't even know where to start." "Start by admitting you were wrong. Completely, unequivocally wrong. Not wrong because he turned out to be military. Wrong because you judged him based on race. Wrong because you disrespected a guest in our home. Wrong because you hurt your daughter. Can you admit that?" Robert struggles with this. Decades of ingrained racism don't dissolve instantly just because you got confronted with evidence of your hypocrisy. The mental gymnastics want to kick in. Excuses about not knowing, about being surprised, about wanting to protect his daughter, about cultural differences, anything to avoid the central truth that he's racist, and he just acted on that racism in a way that caused real harm. But Linda isn't letting him off the hook. "Robert, can you admit you were wrong?" "Yes, I was wrong. I judged him unfairly. I should have given him a chance." "Why did you judge him unfairly?" Because he's black. And I have assumptions about black men dating white women. And those assumptions are based on racist stereotypes that I've held for most of my life without examining them. And I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth." The admission hangs in the air. The first time Robert has stated his racism plainly instead of hiding behind euphemisms. That's a start. But saying it here to me doesn't fix what you did to him. You need to apologize, to both of them, and you need to mean it, and you need to commit to doing the work to change these beliefs. Because if you don't, you're going to lose your daughter, maybe permanently. In the car, driving away from the house, Sarah is sobbing while James drives, one hand on the wheel and one hand holding hers, letting her process the emotional devastation of having her father's racism fully exposed. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to experience that. I knew he might be difficult, but I didn't think he'd be that blatant, that cruel. I'm humiliated and heartbroken, and I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to apologize for him. His actions are his responsibility, not yours." "But I convinced you to come. I said it would be fine. I said he'd come around once he met you. And instead, he didn't even let you through the door. God, I'm so embarrassed." "Sarah, look at me." James pulls over to the side of the road, puts the car in park, turns to face her fully. "This is not your fault. You didn't create your father's racism. You didn't control his reaction. All you did was hope that he'd be a better person than he turned out to be. That's not a character flaw on your part. That's optimism meeting harsh reality." "But where do we go from here? How do we move forward when my father won't even acknowledge your existence as valid?" "That's your decision to make. I can tell you what I think, but ultimately you have to decide what kind of relationship you want with your parents given what just happened." "What do you think?" James is quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I think your father revealed something today that was probably always there. Racism doesn't appear from nowhere. It's built over a lifetime. Today it just became visible in a way that couldn't be ignored. And now you have to decide, can he change? Is he willing to do the work to examine his beliefs and commit to being different? Or is this who he fundamentally is? I don't know. I want to believe he can change. But I'm also not sure I can forgive what he did today. The way he looked at you. The way he dismissed you without even trying to know you. Like you were less than human. You don't have to forgive him right away. You don't have to make any decisions today. Take time, process, figure out what you need from him before you're willing to engage again. What do you need? What would it take for you to even consider being in the same room as him after this? James thinks about this. Honestly, a genuine apology. Not, I'm sorry you were offended, or I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. A real apology that acknowledges what he did was racist, that his behavior was wrong regardless of my military service, and that he's committed to examining his prejudices and changing. Without that, I don't see how we move forward. That's fair. That's completely reasonable. I just don't know if he's capable of that kind of honesty with himself. Then that tells you what you need to know about whether this relationship can include your family. They sit in silence for a while, holding hands, processing the trauma of the afternoon, trying to figure out what comes next. Sarah's phone buzzes. A text from her mother. Your father wants to talk. He wants to apologize. Can you come back? Please? Sarah shows the text to James. What do you think? I think that depends on whether you're ready to hear what he has to say, and whether you believe he's capable of a real apology or if this is just damage control. Only one way to find out. They drive back to the house, park at the curb again. This time they walk up the porch together, hand in hand, united. Robert is waiting in the doorway. His face is different now, less defensive, more uncertain, like someone who's been forced to look at themselves in a mirror and didn't like what they saw. Sarah, James, thank you for coming back. I need to apologize. To both of you. What I did was wrong. Completely wrong. I judged James based purely on his race. I refused to give him a chance to prove who he is. I disrespected him and hurt my daughter and revealed myself to be someone I'm not proud of. James remains quiet, letting Robert continue, not making this easy. I want to blame it on being protective or being surprised or not understanding the situation, but the truth is simpler and uglier than that. I'm racist. I have beliefs about black people that are based on stereotypes and prejudice. And when I saw James on my porch, those beliefs overrode everything else. Overrode my values about treating people with respect. Overrode my supposed patriotism when it came face to face with actually respecting a service member who doesn't match my expectations. I was a hypocrite and a bigot, and I hurt people I claim to care about. Sarah is crying again, but different tears now. Not humiliation, but something more complicated. A mixture of relief and residual hurt and cautious hope that maybe her father is capable of growth. I can't promise I'll change overnight. Racism that's been built over 58 years doesn't disappear because I got called out once. But I can promise to do the work, to examine my beliefs, to challenge my assumptions, to try to be the kind of father and person my daughter deserves. And James, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the respect you should have received from the moment you stepped on my porch. Military service or not, college degree or not, you deserve to be treated as a human being with dignity. And I failed that basic test. I'm sorry. James studies Robert's face, looking for signs of sincerity versus performance, trying to gauge whether this apology is real or just an attempt to smooth things over. He's been on the receiving end of both types, and he's learned to tell the difference. Mr. Patterson, I appreciate the apology. I do. But I need you to understand that words are just the beginning. What matters is action. What matters is whether you follow through on this commitment to examine your racism. Because this isn't just about me and Sarah. This is about how you treat all black people you encounter. This is about whether your beliefs translate into discrimination that affects people's lives. This is about whether you can look at someone who doesn't look like you and see their full humanity without needing them to prove their worth first. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to unlearn beliefs I've held my entire life, but I want to try. For Sarah, for my own conscience, for the values I claim to hold. I want to be better. Then start by educating yourself. Read books about racism and how it operates. Listen to Black voices about their experiences. Examine how your beliefs affect your actions. Challenge yourself when racist thoughts pop up. It's work, uncomfortable work. But it's necessary work if you want to be someone different than who you were on this porch 2 hours ago. Robert nods, looking humbled and uncertain, but maybe, possibly, genuinely committed to trying. Linda speaks up. James, Sarah, would you consider staying for dinner? I know this afternoon didn't go as planned, but maybe we could start over. Try to have the conversation we should have had from the beginning. Sarah looks at James, silently asking his opinion, letting him decide whether he's comfortable staying or whether this is too much to ask after what he's been through. James considers. Part of him wants to leave, to not reward Robert's racism with the family dinner he refused to provide initially. But another part recognizes that change requires opportunity, that if Robert is genuinely willing to work on himself, then shutting that down might feel satisfying in the short term, but doesn't help anyone in the long term. I'll stay for dinner. On one condition, we talk honestly, about racism, about what happened today, about what needs to change. No pretending everything's fine, no sweeping this under the rug. Real conversation. Deal, Robert says immediately. No pretending, real conversation. They go inside. Finally, James crosses the threshold that was blocked 2 hours ago. The house is exactly what he expected. Comfortable middle-class home, American flags everywhere, military memorabilia despite Robert never having served. The aesthetic of someone who performs patriotism without examining what it actually means. They sit in the living room, awkward at first. Linda brings drinks. The silence stretches. Finally, Sarah breaks it. Dad, I need you to know how much today hurt. Not just the racism toward James, but what it revealed about how you see the world. I've been defending you for months when James and I talked about how you might react to meeting him. I kept saying you'd come around, you'd be reasonable, you'd judge him by his character. And instead you didn't even give him that chance. You saw his skin and decided everything else about him. Do you understand how that makes me question everything you taught me about fairness and equality? Robert nods slowly. I do. And I don't have a good answer. I raised you with values I didn't fully live up to myself. I told you to treat people equally while holding racist beliefs. I claimed to judge people by character while letting race override everything. I was a hypocrite. And getting confronted with that today was painful. Necessary, but painful. James sets his water glass down. Mr. Patterson, can I ask you something? What exactly were your assumptions about me when you saw me on your porch? The question is direct and uncomfortable, and Robert visibly struggles with how to answer honestly without sounding even worse than he already has. I thought you were probably not educated, not ambitious, maybe using Sarah for something. I thought you'd be disrespectful or aggressive. I thought letting you in would lead to problems, all of which was based on nothing but stereotypes I've absorbed about Black men my whole life, none of which had any basis in reality or evidence from you specifically. It was pure prejudice. And when you found out I'm military, how did that change your perception? It forced me to confront the contradiction. I claim to support troops. I claim military service is honorable. But I was about to call the police on a service member because he didn't match what I expected a service member to look like. It made me realize that my patriotism is selective, that I only respect and honor service members who fit my comfortable expectations, that my support for troops is performative rather than genuine. That's a hard thing to admit. It is, but it's true. And if I'm going to change, I have to start with honesty about what I actually believe versus what I claim to believe. Linda has been quietly listening, but now she speaks up. Robert has a lot of work to do. We both do, honestly. But I want you both to know that Sarah is our daughter, and we love her. And if you're important to her, then we need to find a way to accept that and build a relationship with you. Not just tolerate you. Actually build something real. James appreciates the sentiment, but he's also realistic. That's going to take time. Trust doesn't rebuild instantly after something like this, but I'm willing to try if the effort is genuine. Dinner is still awkward, but marginally better. They talk about safer topics: James's job in the army, his plans after transitioning to civilian life, his family background, his education. Robert asks questions that he should have asked on the porch instead of jumping to rejection. Linda shares embarrassing stories about Sarah growing up. Small steps toward normal family interaction. But underneath it all is the knowledge that this relationship is fragile, that one apology doesn't erase racism, that Robert has years of work ahead if he wants to truly change his beliefs and behaviors. As they're leaving, Robert stops James at the door. I know I don't have the right to ask this, but would you consider coming back? In a few weeks, maybe? Give me a chance to show you that I'm serious about changing? James looks at Sarah, sees her hopeful expression, sees her silently asking him to give her father another chance. I'll come back. But Mr. Patterson, I need you to understand something. I'm not a project for you to fix your racism with. I'm not here to educate you or rehabilitate you or prove my worth over and over. I'm here because I love your daughter. And if you want to be part of her life, you need to do the work on yourself, read books, listen to podcasts, examine your beliefs. Don't wait for me to teach you how not to be racist. Figure it out yourself. I understand. I will. I promise I will. They leave. Drive back toward the base. The afternoon that started with excitement and hope and nervousness ended with trauma and confrontation and cautious possibility of reconciliation. That was exhausting, Sarah says quietly. Yeah. Emotional labor of navigating racism always is. I'm still processing everything. Part of me is glad he apologized. Part of me is angry it took that much for him to even see me as human. Part of me wonders if he'll actually follow through or if this is temporary guilt that will fade. All of those feelings are valid. This is complicated. Family is complicated. Racism is complicated. You don't have to have it all figured out tonight. Do you think he'll actually change? James is quiet for a long time before answering. I think he wants to. Whether he does the work required to actually change, that remains to be seen. But at least he admitted the problem. That's further than a lot of people get. They drive in silence for a while, processing, decompressing, trying to metabolize the emotional roller coaster of the past few hours. Sarah's phone buzzes again. Another text from her father. Thank you for giving me another chance. I know I don't deserve it. I'm going to do better, I promise. She shows it to James. Think he means it? I think he believes he means it right now. Whether that translates into sustained effort and real change, we'll find out. 3 weeks later, they return to Sarah's parents' house. Robert greets them at the door, and this time he shakes James's hand, invites him in properly, makes an effort. The house looks different. Some of the more aggressive patriotic decor has been toned down. There's a book on the coffee table, How to Be an Anti-Racist, that looks like it's actually been read, pages dog-eared and highlighted. Dinner is better, more relaxed. Robert asks questions about James's life with genuine curiosity rather than suspicious interrogation, listens to answers, shares stories of his own, makes an effort to connect. It's not perfect. Robert still says things that reveal his underlying biases, still has assumptions that need challenging, still has a long way to go. But it's progress. Real, measurable progress. The beginning of actual change rather than just performative apology. After dinner, Robert pulls James aside. "I want to show you something." He leads James to his home office, a room filled with military memorabilia and patriotic decor. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since our first meeting, a lot of reading, a lot of uncomfortable self-examination. And I realized something. I've been performing patriotism my whole life without understanding what it actually means. I put up flags and stickers and claimed to support troops. But when an actual service member showed up on my porch, I disrespected him because he didn't match my expectations. That's not patriotism. That's nationalism with a racist filter." He pulls out a folder. "I want you to have this. It's not much, but it's something." Inside are donation receipts, contributions to organizations that support Black veterans, that fight for racial justice, that provide resources for service members of color. Not huge amounts, but real money, real commitment. "I know this doesn't make up for what I did, but I wanted you to see that I'm trying, that I'm putting money and effort behind my claims to do better, that this isn't just words." James is genuinely surprised. This level of follow-through is rare. Most people who promise to change after being confronted with their racism do nothing. They feel bad for a while and then go back to their comfortable prejudices. But Robert is actually doing work. "I appreciate this. Really. This is more than most people do. It's the bare minimum, but it's a start. And I'm going to keep going, keep reading, keep learning, keep challenging myself. Because you were right. I don't get to perform patriotism while being racist to service members. I don't get to claim values I don't actually live. Either I support all troops or I support none. Either I judge people by character or I judge by race. No more middle ground, no more convenient exceptions." They return to the living room where Sarah and Linda are talking. The evening ends on a hopeful note. Not perfect, not healed, but better. Over the following months, Robert continues the work, continues reading, starts having difficult conversations with his friends who make racist comments, challenges his own assumptions when they pop up, slowly, gradually becomes someone different than who he was on that porch 6 months ago. It's not a complete transformation. Racism that deep doesn't fully dissolve, but it's growth, real growth, the kind that only happens when someone is willing to be uncomfortable and do hard work. A year after that first confrontation, James and Sarah get married. Robert walks his daughter down the aisle, shakes James's hand with genuine respect, welcomes him into the family with actual warmth instead of grudging tolerance. In his wedding toast, Robert does something unexpected. He acknowledges what happened. "A year ago, I almost lost my daughter because I couldn't see past my own prejudice. I looked at James and saw only his race, saw only my stereotypes and fears. I refused to see his character, his service, his love for my daughter. And I'm ashamed of that. But I'm grateful that both of them gave me the chance to do better, to learn, to change. James, you serve this country with honor, and you treat my daughter with love and respect. That's all any father should want. Welcome to our family, for real this time." The speech gets applause. Some people cry. Sarah, most of all, seeing her father publicly acknowledge his growth and commit to being better. It's not a Hollywood ending. Robert still has work to do, still catches himself making assumptions, still has to consciously challenge beliefs he held for 6 decades. But he's trying, actually trying, and that matters. James stands with his new wife, looking at his father-in-law who once refused to let him through the door, who now embraces him as family, who learned, slowly, painfully, imperfectly, that patriotism without equality is just nationalism, that supporting troops means all troops, that character is measured by actions rather than appearances. The wedding ends. Life continues. James finishes his military service and transitions to civilian life. Sarah completes her degree. They build a life together, and Robert remains part of that life, imperfect but improving, learning that fatherhood sometimes means examining your worst beliefs and choosing your daughter's happiness over your own prejudice. Because that's what real change looks like. Not dramatic overnight transformation, but slow, uncomfortable, sustained effort to be better than you were, to challenge beliefs you've held forever, to choose growth over comfort. A girl's dad refused to let her black boyfriend enter his house, saw him on the porch and decided within seconds that he wasn't worthy, called him unwelcome, threatened to call police. Then he saw the army uniform, saw the service ribbons, saw the evidence that his racist assumptions were wrong, and had to choose, double down on prejudice or confront his beliefs and change. He chose change, imperfectly, slowly, but genuinely. And a relationship that started with rejection and tears ended with a wedding toast and welcome. That's not redemption. Redemption implies the racist gets rewarded for doing basic decency. This is just consequences, negative consequences for racism and slightly less negative consequences for genuine effort to change. The boyfriend didn't have to forgive, didn't have to give second chances, but he chose to because his girlfriend asked and because the effort seemed genuine. And the father learned that performative patriotism means nothing if you can't respect the actual service members standing on your porch. That supporting troops is easy when they match your expectations and hard when they challenge your prejudices. That real honor means examining your worst beliefs and choosing to be better. Sometimes racism is confronted and nothing changes. People double down. Relationships end. Families fracture. But sometimes, rarely but sometimes, confrontation leads to genuine self-examination, to uncomfortable growth, to people becoming slightly better versions of themselves. This was one of those times. Not perfect, not complete, but real. A dad cried when he saw his daughter's boyfriend's military uniform. Not tears of immediate acceptance, tears of shame, of recognizing his hypocrisy, of realizing he disrespected someone who served while he just performed patriotism from the safety of his home. And those tears became the beginning of actual change. Slow, painful, imperfect, but change nonetheless.